guys, Noel here, and it is Thursday, and I got a little bit of free time on my hands, so I thought we'd do a weblog for the video game section of the Noel Comics YouTube channel. You know, I'm sure if you have been paying attention to what's been going on in, nerd YouTube and all this other stuff in that kind of ecosystem, you will know that PlayStation has decided to stop making games in physical format. That's not good, and that's what we're going to talk about today, right? Now, growing up in the 90s, I was born in the 80s, and, I was a young lad and teenager in the 90s, and I was in my 20s in the 2000s, kind of really like growing up. My first console was the Sega Genesis, and then the Sega Saturn, and then the Sony PlayStation. Then I got an N64 and a Dreamcast. And then, I ended up getting Xbox 360. And I actually got a PlayStation 2 before then, but you kind of get the idea, right? So all of these consoles that I, would buy or, have, Santa Claus bring to me, they all had, one thing in common, right? You got a game, you popped the game in, you played it, and you bought the game in its fully complete form at the store, right? I go to Walmart, or I go to GameStop, and I just say, or go to Ames or Kmart or whatever. I see a game, I buy the game. It's got, very cool aesthetics. Each, company had their own unique kind of aesthetic presentation. And then, like actually here, I just actually got the Super Famicom version of Chrono Trigger right here. So each place kind of had their own aesthetic presentation. Then you had a complete product. You popped that into your console of choice, and you would play games of various quality, and you'd own them. And I still have these games to this day in 2026, right? Well, now that's no longer going to be the format anymore, which is not good. Not good from the perspective of being able to, preserve and own things, really not good in those terms. I'm old enough to remember when the internet first came around, and it really started like taking off. And I remember it was like the year, 2000. Maybe it was like 2002. I remember like sitting on, maybe 2002. It was like I just got my first computer. And I remember like thinking like, oh man, all this stuff that's on the internet, man, it's going to be around forever because it's in like a digital format, like discs, your dog can break it or something like that. But, your information when it's on the internet, it's going to be around forever. And that's great. And I was like super wrong about that, right? I mean, try going on to MySpace now. I've done videos about MySpace on my channel, and you can, if you can remember your password, get into your MySpace page. I still use my MySpace page. I have videos on my channel talking about how I still use my MySpace page. Well, guess what? All of my stuff on my MySpace page before the year 2019, or was it 15? I don't know. It's all wiped out. Like, everyone, if you could get back into your MySpace page, you would have nothing. Because all of the, stuff that, all the, digital avatars of people, it no longer exists, right? All of that stuff was wiped out in a server transfer. So, it's like some like great library of the Roman Empire being, burned down, except rather than actually having to, have barbarians come and set the library on fire, some little glitch happens in a server somewhere, or some company decides they don't want to have to pay for the bandwidth, and now all of your history of yourself is destroyed, right? Because like nothing of MySpace exists that wasn't preserved in the Internet Archive, unless it's stuff that happened after, I think it's 2019. So, imagine this happening with video games, right? Now, I understand that, these corporations now, and this trend really happened in Japan with the shift to cell phone gaming, right? I mean, Japan is never, it's a smaller living space. You know, everything's always smaller there. And, you know, there has been a shift there away from console gaming, more towards cell phone gaming, and everything on cell phone gaming is digital. And that's why I think you've seen a real fall off in, you know, Japan being this great pinnacle, this like kind of capital of global gaming, and that is sadly kind of shifted to the United States, where woke politics reigns, and now you get, you know, stuff like The Last of Us, where, you know, roided up hermaphrodites go beat up male characters with golf clubs, you know, and that's called progress because, you know, screw gamers, you know, but like, you know, but the thing is right, so like Japan, they started like kind of this like shift over to like cell phone gaming and, you know, service-based gaming, you know, and now that has kind of weaseled its way into, you know, things like on consoles, right? You have, Fortnite and all these other, you know, subscription-based games, you know, Roblox, things like that. I'm not saying that those games are bad, but it's just, I think it's just gotten to a point where game developers have realized they can make a lot more money making one game that's like half done and then just kind of release the rest of it incrementally, and you just kind of keep having to pay for these, you know, updates, or you play a game and if you want to keep getting good at the game, you know, you pay to win, or you're playing some kind of, you know, MMORPG and there could be some kind of a monthly fee or something like that, right? So all of these things have lent themselves to an economic model of not producing totally completed video games, you know, like where you just go to the store and buy Sonic 3, pop it in your Genesis, and now it's yours forever. No, now it's like, you know, you're going to buy... actually, Sonic 3 is an interesting example because they actually didn't finish that whole game and they released it in two parts, Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, and then if you combined the two, it became like the complete game. But there were still completed cartridges that you could like own and nothing could happen to it. Now the thing is, right, when you have these like digital services and things like that, if they just at some point become unprofitable, you know, or some kind of contract runs out or something like that happens, then you're going to, you know, lose your games. You know, and another thing on this topic that is, you know, worth mentioning is, you know, like I have, you know, starting with Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 and 4 and 5 and Switch and Xbox One and all that stuff, you know, I have accumulated, you know, a lot of, you know, really good games that I've gotten through digital download. And, you know, one of the things, you know, that it is very cool, like maybe you are having a hard time getting out and like going to the stores and things like that. Maybe you don't have a car, you know, maybe you're, you know, for whatever reason, kind of homebound or something like that. Yeah, you know, having these, you know, digital options is great. It's a great service and things like that. But again, you know, you really got to have these things running alongside, you know, hardware, and, you know, hard copies of things. You know, let me give you, you know, an example, right? So, you know, on my PlayStation 3, you know, I have the Simpsons arcade game downloaded. Well, you know, like that game you can't find online anymore because, and not through any like official stores or anything like that, because whatever contract that, you know, Sony and Microsoft had with Konami, or the Konami had with the Simpsons people or whatever, that didn't, you know, work. And so now the game's got to be taken down off the store. Now, assuming that, you know, Sony and Microsoft, they don't go into your hardware digitally and go wipe the game from your hard drive, you know, like, well, at least I have the game saved on my hard drive. But what if they want to be dicks about it and, you know, say, hey, you know, it's our property, it's our console, it's our service, so we're going to take away your stuff and then make you go rebuy it when we have access to the intellectual property again. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Capcom fighting game, is another perfect example. I didn't get into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure until, after that game had been taken down off of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 stores. I recently just rebought the X-Men arcade game just because I like it. But I mean, I'm lucky I had that downloaded on my PS3. And so yeah, lots of stuff like that, right? Let me give you another example. I actually I prefer the cell phone graphics Final Fantasy games. I like the big, clean looking sprites, right? Well, those HD sprites, those aren't available anymore because Squaresoft took those games down because they wanted to go resell their pixel edition stuff, right? So, when these games become, either unavailable or unprofitable, you better hope to God that these, corporations don't hack your stuff and erase your software, because that, they have been known to do that, right? And that's not good. That's going to suck, because, your history is about continuity and change, right? And you kind of keep yourself alive and keep yourself as a project by having continuity that maintains itself along with how you change over time, right? So, I can go right to a drawer right now and go grab a game that I had. I can go grab X-Men on the Sega Genesis. It was my first game, and it'll take me right back to being in the 4th grade, right? Now, but the thing is, if you just have these there is potential with digital services too, right? I mean, you can upload these old games and have ROMs and things like that. So that end of digital is good, but that only really works if it's kind of running alongside physical media. But this is the problem, right? This is always the problem with capitalism. The good thing with capitalism is that it breeds innovation. Oh man, this game is good, but could it look better? And someone's like, yeah, we'll get on that and we'll sell you a game that looks better. It's like you've manufactured a need, and that's, triggering innovation, and now you're getting, developing stuff, right? Or maybe it's like, oh man, this game looks a little too slick. Could we make it a little more stylized? Yeah, we'll get on that. And now you get more games with a retro aesthetic or something like that, right? So there's definitely good innovative things to capitalism, but the downside to it is once something stops being profitable, fuck it, it's done, right? So it's oh man, we could actually make more money giving gamers less stuff. Let's do that, and if they complain, screw them. We'll just get mad at them for voting for Trump or something like that, right? And vilify them or something, so, or call them whiny or, whatever. So yeah, this isn't good. None of this is good. I'm completely disincentivized to buy really any more major, hardware. I'll probably get a Switch 2. But between just the lack of the jacked up prices and the just lack of games in general, right? I mean, I probably have about a handful of PS5 games that I really like, and it's kind of every system sequentially as it kind of goes up, you get less and less good games, or the PlayStation. I got piles of PlayStation 1 games, and piles of PlayStation 2 games. But kind of as we've gotten into the PS3, 4, and 5, the quantity of games that have been released is fewer and fewer and fewer. And, some of that is well, we're just going to release one game and keep updating it piecemeal, and that carries with it its own, pros and cons. But seriously, I mean, do I really want to be, paying, these consoles aren't getting any cheaper, right? I'm, paying what, $700 for a console where I don't own any hard software on it? I mean, I'm just not very, intrigued by that. So before I start, trailing off, I just kind of wanted to, share my thoughts, I think I might upload I had a chat about this in a recent live stream. But yeah, from the perspective of consumer rights and game preservation, none of this is good. And then there's this the kind of the mantra of if nobody owns anything, then piracy is fine. And I've never liked the term piracy at all. I think share being able to photocopy and share stuff is that just kind of comes. It's kind of like the more socialistic evolution of capitalist technology. So yeah, man, share your stuff however you're gonna do it, whether it's digital or in person. But I would once again try to get as much hardware as possible. This is a whole other thing, is you can't use Game Sharks and stuff anymore. Just even the way that you can play video games has been hampered by making everything into this kind of like totalitarian, kind of controlled digital format. People just have less rights and have less fun. So maybe this will breed innovation and market demand for more older school physical stuff. And then maybe that might end up pushing these, mega corporations into, going a little old school. Just saw some clips of the new Ghost in the Shell anime that looks like the 80s manga. It's beautiful stuff. Well, I'm taking off, guys. Until next time, my name is Noel. You take care, and I'll see you in the very near future for more fun and excitement on the Noel Comics YouTube channel. Bye-bye.